right, we've got a problem. The GetAddrInfo function accessed with the glibc calls another function. This other function will cause issues for you down the road. Thread safety is of concern. As you can see here, Rachel Kroll describes details about how our GetAddrInfo calls getEnv, which is problematic because this has considerations when running multi-threaded applications. And this doesn't just affect C applications, it also affects code in Golang. And it might not just stop there. Check this out. The problem evolves as we dig deeper. It's even funny that Rachel describes here that was previously mentioned in a previous post in 2017, see you back in 2022, the future. And it turns out it's still an issue. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal is because the GetAddrInfo function is called by a lot. Usually when you're making an API call outbound to any other service on the internet. And this is because you need to do a DNS lookup. The GetAddrInfo will take a DNS address and resolve it through DNS queries to give you an IP address so that way you can communicate with the server and get the data that you're looking for. The GetAddrInfo function call is required, especially if you're trying to make any sort of connections to any sort of IP address, even IPv4, IPv6. You need to call this function to resolve the IP address so you can connect to that server endpoint. And this needs to happen ongoing and continuously, as sometimes those IP addresses need to change and other IPs will resolve based on that DNS name. So you need to regularly refresh that information within your application and in your OS DNS cache. So basically you can't avoid it. And this is something that will come up on a regular basis, that there's always that race condition of a potential segmentation fault. And we know that segmentation faults are not good because they mean that your application will crash because it cannot proceed forward. It has violated the operating system's sandbox that allows it to only access the memory that it's been allocated. If it tries to reach out of that address, guess what? It's going to close your program because it's violated its requirements, which isn't good because that means that your application is essentially crashed. It's a hard crash. It will stop processing and it cannot do any sort of cleanup work afterwards. So you want to avoid those scenarios as much as possible. All right, if we dive deeper here, it says last time this was a problem. Here's a demonstration and the segment fault. Oh, that's not good. Signal received. And back in 2017, when this post was created, there's also a problem with make time, and it will call, of course, again, getEnv, which is the environmental variables in the system. So if you're running a multi-threaded application or in kind of application environment where you're going to be having threads accessing these functions, beware.